been here before, and welcome to those who are coming down for the first time. Just a little bit about ourselves. We're a co-working space, and just above us is about 30 desks that we have filled. And next door in Bay 9, we've got 21 offices, and a few are currently present from that membership. Welcome. Not to put you on the spot.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
We love it.
Thank you all for coming down on this rainy evening. It's very lovely. And we'll be expanding our offices next door in the next 3 bays in the coming months. So it's a very exciting time for us. So if anybody would like a tour later on, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself, our lovely General Manager Tom, and our lovely Lucy, who's also made that beautiful mulled wine. Yes. Yeah. So without further ado as well, to welcome our guest speaker for the evening, who's been giving advice on business and technology since he was 10. And there will be questions right after his presentation. Mr. Craig Rispin.
Thank you. I'm going to try using the microphone because we're shooting video tonight. We're live. Are we live? Are we live? Wow. We are live. Better watch what I say. Hey, can I ask a question? Have you met a futurist before? You met a futurist before? Do you know this is a real job? You have. Who have you met?
You.
Oh, well. You know, there's more than just me out there. Our professional association.
Who was the guy?
Yes, who was it? Can you remember?
Australian guy with the orange book called The Future.
Do you understand?
Yes, Anders. Yeah, Anders. There's about 900 futurists here in Australia that graduated from universities around the country. The longest running program in Australia was at Swinburne, where about 600 students graduated from there. You can also do professional studies. This is what I did. I went to a professional association and took courses there on things that you would have heard of that futurists have invented that are now commonplace in business, like scenario planning and environmental scanning and causal layer analysis. I'm sure you're all doing this in your businesses, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we get to have the most amazing conversations with all sorts of organizations, whether they be great big multinationals, the finance industry, peak associations looking at how their industry is changing. I've worked with the Cotton Growers Association, Sydney Fish Market's doing a $680 million remodel. I'm advising them on that right now. And at Sydney Airport, they're going to not build half of the parking lots at their new terminal because they're prepared for driverless cars. Isn't that interesting? You know how much money they make for parking? You know what the margin is on that? They said, oh, there's more margin in retail. There's more margin in the retail. But it doesn't matter what industry group that I work with. And I'll work with 50 plus different industries. Every week I'm in a different industry. And I learn so much from them. And as futurists, we see our role as a bit like bumblebees, sort of cross-fertilizing from industry to industry. Because if you work in one industry, you tend to become very isolated, don't you? And you don't know what's going on just in another industry somewhere else that you might be able to steal their ideas. So that's part of where I get my research, is from my community. It's the research that I do, and also from my clients. But whenever they call me up and they brief me, they say, come along to our annual conference, Rispin, and talk to us about the future. And the president of the association or the country manager or CEO will say something like this. The conversation always goes to something like this. Rispin, I've been in this industry 30, 40 years, and we've seen more change in the last 3 than I've seen in my entire career. You're nodding. That's great, because this is your first chance to have a conversation with your learning partner that you came along with this evening. You didn't know you came with your learning partner. So your learning partners, there's 3 in this row. You're going to have to slide over there and find a learning partner. And if you have an odd number in your row, you're going to have to form a triumvirate of learning. What I'd like you to do is find a partner to discuss this with, or a triumvirate, right? And discuss with them. Tell them your first name, what industry you're from, and what incredible changes you've seen just in the last 3 years in your industry. You have 60 seconds to discuss. Your time begins now.
So you can do it basically Australia now and last 3 years
And who would like to share not what they thought was the most surprising, massive change from their industry, but what they learned from their learning partner? See, you had to be listening. Who would like to go first? Shoot your hand up. Thank you for volunteering.
Okay, I'll just make it up as I go. No, so what I just learned was, I guess the investment industry's changed quite a lot from an almost dashboard of, in the same way that you go in and just want a bit of sushi, I want one of those, one of those, one of those. It's all kind of presented on these platforms now where you can, just sit at your desk and make those kind of decisions, which I never really thought of from an investment point of view. That's a pretty big change, and I guess we're at a time now where innovation is kind of a hot topic, and specifically Australia, as we don't have mining, it's like it's got to come from, I guess, technology and IP, and so that's a pretty big transformation in terms of investing in businesses.
It is. If I get a chance, I'll show you my virtual investment dashboard. As a U.S. citizen, I can't talk about any organization in my slide pack without doing a Federal Trade Commission disclosure for every company I might have an investment in. So I have no investments in any organizations that I'm going to talk about, because sometimes people go, "You're so enthusiastic, you must have a vested interest," and actually it would be very costly for me to do that. I want to accelerate the conversation that we're going to have this evening because I don't have very long. And to get you up to speed with the major social, religious, technological, insurance, transport, medical, data storage shifts, there's a video you may have seen. It's a series of videos that were started in 2006. You may have seen these videos. They're called Did You Know? And put your hand up if you've played a Did You Know video. What? 2 people? Or you're just not willing to put your hand up? Oh, well, now I'm obliged to play it for sure. Do you know these videos have been viewed, combined, that this series of videos have been watched over 500 million times? You sure you haven't seen this before? Anyway, a friend of mine who's an educational futurist produced these videos to show to parents who, about 18 months ago, he said, if you're putting your kids in school now, when they graduate in 2028, because that's when they get out of high school, this is how different the world will be. And it's a great way to practice adult accelerated learning. If we watch this video together and then you turn to your learning partner and you interview your learning partner, which did you think was most interesting to you in the video? You got the brief? You know what we're doing? Here comes the video. It's only 2 minutes and 16 seconds long. Did you know that in 2028? lecture will be about dealing with these dichotomies. That at the same time that entire industries are being disrupted, disruptors are emerging. This is the dichotomy, the change that we're going to have to deal with. Time to discuss with your learning partner. What did you see in the video that was most surprising to you? You only have 30 seconds this time. Your time begins now.
That would be insane.
Have you seen Limitless? Limitless? Sorry? It's a film called Limitless, where it takes it to a tablet and basically unlocks the 90% of his brain that is hitherto locked. He can just remember everything he's ever meant to see.
10 seconds. Who would like to share what their learning partner thought was the most surprising thing in this video? Yes, thank you for volunteering.
That water would be the most fought over resource in the world by 2038.
Yeah, so we really are going to have, this has been predicted for decades in my community, that we really think that we will have wars over water. Lucky for us, just a couple of kilometers down below Australia is one of the world's largest aquifers that could provide the water for 100 million people on our continent for 10,000 years. But it's just down a couple kilometers, which is really hard to get to. Who else would like to share something that their learning partner thought was so surprising in the video, or didn't believe it at all? That couldn't be true, could it? Like, for instance, I'm not going to volunteer. I'll volunteer one. Do you think they could possibly store the entire internet on just a tiny bit of DNA? Like, everything that's digitized today could be put on a few grams of DNA. Yeah, of course it could. And in fact, there are companies like Microsoft, Google, and the data center industry group that I advise who are telling all of their data center engineers that they're probably going to have to go back to school and get a degree in biology and genetics, because the next generation of storage clearly will be life code, not computer code. And you may have heard about Microsoft buying the first 10 million strands from this little startup. Any startups in the room? I love the name of this startup. They're genetic engineers. Their startup's called Twist. Twist. And that little bit there can store data for the long term. The American Film Institute is taking all the films and putting them into DNA storage as we speak, because they know that it will last for at least 1,000 years. And film and digital storage, especially magnetic, does not. So this is the startup Twist. And did you know a single gram? I love how they started that. Did you know? Did you know a 1 gram of DNA can store 1 billion terabytes of data? Do you know what that is? What a terabyte is? Do you get a laptop now with a terabyte drive? Some laptops you get with. This is 1 billion terabyte drives in a single gram. Unfortunately, it's really slow to read right now and quite expensive, but we know we'll work that out. We know it will be worked out pretty quickly. So we're really living in this world of a dichotomy, aren't we? At the same time where we have peril, that we could wipe mankind off the face of the planet, at the same time, we're solving some of the world's biggest problems right now, today. Solar is cheaper right now, today, than coal is. We solved that problem. Let's move on. Disrupted and disruptors, high tech and high touch. At the same time that technology has invaded our lives, being the first thing and last thing that we touch in a day. For many of us, the first thing we touch in a day is a piece of technology, not our partner. We don't go to the loo. The first thing that we do, what do? You check your phone. You check the feeds or your Facebook update. Of course you do. As technology has invaded our lives, the touch industries, see we got the touch industry over there? Massage, chiropractic, acupuncture, health and beauty. I work in these industry groups. They're growing at double digits because people are demanding more high touch because they feel technology is invading their lives. Did you know this? Double-digit growth in the high touch industries. Who would have thought? It maps almost identically the rise of the single-person household in Australia. The latest Bureau of Statistics report was being dribbled out in press releases. I have some friends that work at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and they say, Craig, we'll let you in on a little inside information. We think it's going to be about 26% of all households in Australia will be single-person households. Really interesting. If you'd like to know more about these trends that we've talked about, I'd highly recommend, if you haven't read, this fantastic book, Abundance. The Future is Better Than You Think. I especially recommend it if you have a friend that's a pessimist. Give it to them. Ask them to read it and catch up for a coffee maybe the next month, and I guarantee you they will no longer be a pessimist about the future. And in this book that Bill Gates said is required reading for every modern executive, didn't he? Yeah, yes he did. Bill Gates said required reading for every modern executive. It spells out the 8 megatrends that will solve the world's biggest problems. Put your hand up if you read the book. Just a few of you. Would you recommend it to the rest of the crowd? Absolutely, of course you would. I have clients who carry them around in boxes in the back of their car to give it to friends. If you hadn't had a chance to read it, I'll give you the crib sheet. The 8 exponential Moore's Law-powered technologies that Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler said in this book will transform and entire industries and solve the world's biggest problems are, number 1, infinite computing, and we just talked about that. When a single gram of DNA could store all of the internet, that's an example of infinite storage, isn't it? Sensors and networks, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology. By the way, 3D printing is just a specialized form of robotics. Digital medicine, nanomaterials, and artificial intelligence. And at this point, you pull out your mobile device and snap a picture of that so you don't forget it. I'm just pausing there for a minute before I click the slide. Have you got your mobile internet device? Does it have a camera in it? Do you want it? You just want me to click? 3, 2, 1. You got it? Oh, what a great question! Oh, wait. Can you ask that question again? Can you ask that question?
Yeah, if this is the case, why aren't our kids learning this at school?
What a great question. And in fact, a group of Futurist friends of mine actually went to Google and they said, Google, are they teaching at university what you want graduates to know? And you know what surprisingly they said? No. And they said, well, we're starting a new university. It's called Singularity University, and we're going to teach everything that they don't teach at universities. And you know what Google said? Here's $100 million to start your university. Boy, that ticked off all the vice chancellors. Oh, man. It's the world's youngest university, and now they've got free facilities at NASA. Their startup capital was a grant of $100 million, and now Google said we'll fund all of your students' degrees as well. Just saying. This book was written by one of those futurists who pitched Google. Do you want to read it now? Just saying. So these 8 megatrends are what's driving the 162 startups that are valued at more than $1 billion today. I checked this 2 days ago. It was 158. It's 162 this morning. 162 unicorns, as we call them. But what do we call unicorns that are $10 billion? or $40 billion, or $70 billion. Is that a septideca unicorn? What do we call them?
Rhinos.
Rhinos. Ah, rhinos. Yeah, and they've been tracking this at the Wall Street Journal. You might want to snap a picture of this at the $1 Billion Startup Club. And it's an infographic. You can hit play. They've been tracking it since the rise of the unicorns, the $1 Billion Club, since 2014. And it's if you don't know who these companies are, and many people don't know who these very successful companies are, you can scroll down the list, see where they are in the world, and then you click on the profile, and it pops up with all the stories that they've written at the Wall Street Journal about Uber, for instance, who's just come out with their diversity report. Just saying. So number two, Uber's valued just at $68 billion this morning. So these numbers are so big, people just have no idea. Let me give you a scale. The entire taxi industry in all of North America, all the taxi industry, their value combined is $15 billion. This one company is many multiples bigger, and they're not members of the taxi association. They don't turn up, right? Do you know who Didi is? Who's Didi? Anybody in the room? Second, at $50 billion this morning. They were $30 billion just a few weeks ago. Didi is Uber in China. And in fact, they copied Uber's business model and were very successful at doing that. When Uber moved to China, they tried to compete with Didi, and they just couldn't. So what happened was they each took an investment in each other's company, and one person from Didi is on the Uber board, and one person from the Uber board is on the Didi board. And so if you were to combine those two companies together, they would be valued at more than $100 billion. When I worked for Steve Jobs in the 1980s, he encouraged us, back when Apple was 1,500 employees, let's just get to 100 million. Let's just get to 100 million. You know what they're saying? Let's just get to 100 billion. Number three, Xiaomi. They make the what phone? Anyone? What phone did they make? The Mi phone. The Mi phone. Not the iPhone or the My phone. The Mi phone. MI. Xiaomi. Airbnb, 30 billion. Predator. They do security. They work with agencies that have three-letter acronyms. FBI, NSA, Homeland Security. These are their clients. And as you scroll down the list, you can find out more about why they're valued at this rate. And it's not just venture capitalists making these valuations. It's the Benevolent Society of Retired Teachers Fund of Canada is invested in Uber. They're taking a portion of their investment portfolio and investing in these companies that are transforming the world. At Davos, I know it's for privileged white male people, they say, but at Davos, what are the bankers all talking about? The fourth industrial revolution, and they're pointing right to this list. This is the next fourth industrial revolution. We're seeing it unfold right in front of us. Hopefully, you're part of this industry that is transforming every industry around them. You've heard it before. Uber is the world's largest what? Most valued what? Transport company that owns no vehicles. Actually, they own 20 driverless vehicles now. So they own 20 vehicles. But to give you a scale, because people don't know, what is big? Well, they're bigger than GM and Ford. And if you had teenage kids like I have, and you were advising them on their future careers, would you be advising them to go to work for Ford or GM? or Uber right now. Airbnb. I stayed in an Airbnb last week. I'll be staying in an Airbnb this week. A brand new apartment. They're still painting the lobby. Half the price of the hotel that's in the same building on William Street in Melbourne. Half the price. And I looked up the stats for that day last week. 1 million people were being hosted. 1.3 million people were being hosted that night at Airbnb. So that makes them the world's largest what? Accommodations provider that owns no real estate. And I have to tell you, I've worked with a lot of the hotel groups. I've worked with the head of finance of one of the biggest hotel groups. And she was saying to me, she's based out of Singapore, she said, Rispin, we know you know about the startup community. Could you give us a strategy? Because we just did a survey of our customers and we discovered something really startling. I said, what's that? Well, we went to all of our privileged, our club card holders. I don't want to give away who it is, okay? And we looked at all the club card members that hadn't stayed with us, even if they were staying with us on a regular basis, they hadn't stayed with us in 90 days. And so we called them up from our call center and we asked them, hey, we've been missing you. Where have you gone? Thinking that they went to the other big hotel group, that they matched their status or something like that. And they said 94% of their customers said, have you heard of Airbnb? And she said to me, we just invested $19 billion in building new hotels and acquiring land and existing hotels, Rispin. What do we do? And I said to her, have you heard of this great American phrase? It kind of goes like this. Maybe you can help me finish it. If you can't beat them, I said, how many investment review board meetings did you have before you invested these $19 billion? And she laughed at me. Rispin, you know the answer to that. All I do is sit in investment review board meetings. I'm the CFO. I have to be there. It's my responsibility. And I say, how many of these meetings do you get outside investment advisors to advise you on this? And they said, all of them. We have outside advisors. And I say, you're going to tell me you've had hundreds of meetings and not one of them said, hey, have you ever thought about maybe investing $18 billion in real estate and $1 billion in Airbnb just so you could be on the board of your biggest competitor? Remarkably, she said to me, Craig, not once did any of their advisors in hundreds of those meetings suggest this. Unfreaking believable. I can't believe it. Guess who they have an investment in now? Just saying. Because they're not as big as Hilton. But Hilton has an investment in Airbnb now. Because Airbnb is bigger than Marriott and Hilton. And we're now living in a world where individuals with 2 laptops, a broadband connection, and an Amazon developer account can create $1 billion startup. This is happening every day, isn't it? So we're living in a world where an individual is doing now what a company used to do, and companies are doing what countries used to do, especially when it comes to space. And this, I'm a geek, so I just have to show. Did you hear what happened? We're reusing capsules. We're reusing the rockets now. They just changed the space industry forever at SpaceX. And they're just one of these multi-billion-dollar startups on this list. And I have to tell you, the room erupted when the drone barge powered out into the sea and met the rocket perfectly out in the waves. Did you see it? It was incredible. Here it comes. own barge. The crowd goes wild! How would you like to be working for SpaceX on that day? Incredible! Incredible! But here's the downside. Billions of customers now, billions of customers are having what I call Uber experiences. Uber experiences. And you know what happens next? They turn up at your place and they compare their Airbnb, Uber, DJI drone experience to your company standing in your lobby with your mission statement chiseled in glass to be the next biggest. Yeah. I mean, you can't even run a co-working or cafe location anymore unless it's image porn worthy. Here's food porn. Do you know that there was 117 million Instagram snaps around cafes just last month? And I work in the hospitality sector, they're all bemoaning the fact that the grounds in Alexandria have thousands. Have you been there? It's pretty good. Do you see lots of people taking pictures with their phones? Yeah. Yeah, lots of them. They're bemoaning the fact that the grounds in Alexandria and other trendy hipster lifestyle cafes are getting all the buses from Sydney Airport dropping people off. This is what's happening, right? Yeah, you've been there. Because of hashtag food porn. It's like traditional advertising that doesn't work anymore. So they turn up to your place after having this Uber experience. What kind of experience do they have? Turn to your learning partner and ask them about their Uber experience at their place. Ask them about what their Uber experience is like. You have 45 seconds to discuss. Your time begins now. Uber experience. Yeah.
Quite down to really real kind of I'm not too sure.
10 seconds.
I think it's still like
5, 4, 3, 2,
instead of having, have a sort of portal, they can log in, they can get all the insights.
Shoot your hand up if you provide an experience at your organization that's better than Uber or Airbnb or the grounds of what's it? The grounds, yeah. Anyone? Anyone? Awesome, fantastic. One in the room. Or they download your app and they compare the world's best apps to yours, don't they? Of course they do. So, now I know not all of you are startups. Some of you are. But some of you would like to steal some of their ideas. Would you like to steal some of their ideas? Luckily, one of the professors at Singularity University has written a book all about these, what he calls exponential organizations. Exponential organizations. And the book is in fact called Exponential Organizations. How convenient. And in it, it's got 62 case studies of these incredible organizations like Xiaomi and Didi and Uber and Airbnb. And he talks about how their actual mindset is completely different from your average industry professional. In fact, their worldview is radically different to the mainstream. And it all starts with, over the top of their thinking, This MTP, could somebody explain to me what an MTP is? Yeah, it actually says on the slide. Massive transformational purpose. Now, when you talk to, according to this book, the two guys that started Uber on the same weekend that Airbnb was started, by the way. This just happened to be around the inauguration of Obama. They couldn't get transport and they couldn't get a place to stay, and so they created startups all at the same time. When you ask them, why did you do this? They'll tell you about their massive transformational purpose. And at Uber, you think it is to control the transport industry, but in fact, they couldn't get anybody to pick them up in the bad area. The taxis wouldn't come to them, and they couldn't understand why. And once they did a little research, what they realized was that the taxi industry worldwide is known to have a little bit of corruption in it. Just saying. Just a tiny bit. And so they decided that their startup would be based on rooting out the corruption worldwide. Now, it looks like they might be the corrupt ones. How ironic it is. So, these are the areas that they think, right brain and left brain. So they think at Uber, Xiaomi, Airbnb, staff on demand, community and crowd, algorithms, leverage assets, engagement. Taking a picture of this? Social, autonomy, experimentation. Many of the startups that I'm working with that are about to be billion-dollar organizations are rolling out a new feature or product or offering to their clients every single week. Not in a quarter, every week they're rolling out a new feature or a new offer. Dashboards, you walk into one of my clients' lobby, they don't have chiseled in glass their mission statement. They've got live data up on the board of all the vehicles that they're monitoring in real time around the world. Those are dashboards and interfaces. This is the way that they think. And if you would like to know more, and if you'd like to steal some of their best ideas for your organization, you just get the book. What was it called again? Yeah, by Salon Ismail, one of the co-founders of Singularity University. Another great resource that if you are a product hunter like I am, or you want product hunt, Startup Stash is a collection, curated collection of tools that all the startups are using. And I go to non-startup industry groups, and what they're looking at now is remaking their organization using the tools that startups are using. Because why? They're 1/10 of the price. They're 10 times faster and 10 times better. Why wouldn't you just steal a few of their ideas? Time to discuss with your learning partner. This time the topic is, what is the best idea that you've ever experienced that you could steal from them? One of these organizations. Have you had an Uber experience? What feature could you steal from them and apply to what you do? You have 30 seconds to discuss. Your time begins now.
Well, we had this idea around Robotics, right, where we need to pay a lot of money to get people involved in market research generally. But if you create some sort of platform where finding the something any good, it's 6 o'clock to register,
This is a great question to continue asking yourself as you're doing research of the $1 billion startup club. What are the best ideas that we could steal from them? So I'm turning up to my clients, and all they can talk about are the $1 million saving that they made by deploying a service bot in their organization. And I listen very closely when they tell me that they saved $1 million. And I say, how did you do that? And they said, well, we hired this Russian machine learning expert in, and he built a customer service app. And the customer service app goes out and asks customers who haven't done business with us in 90 days, what happened and can we serve you? And you wouldn't believe it. The bot talks to them as if it's a live person, but it's not really a live person, is it? And it sets appointments for live people to turn up. But it's not a call center person, it's an algorithm. All based on machine learning. If you watched the Apple live stream just yesterday, day before yesterday, Apple said 147 times in their 3-hour keynote, machine learning. Machine learning. Oh, and we're applying machine learning. Siri's adding some machine learning features, and the photos have machine learning built into them. You think this is a hot topic right now with all the companies? You might also hear it referred to as artificial intelligence, deep learning, or computer cognition. Now, this really became popular in the mainstream when IBM's machine learning-based tool, Watson, played Jeopardy against the humans, and they lost terribly. I'll just give it a spoiler alert. They lost terribly. I don't know, you know how Jeopardy works? They give you the answer and you have to come up with a question. How are you good at Jeopardy? The category is 19th century novelist. The answer is William Wilkinson's An Account of the Principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia inspired this author's most famous novel. Who is the author? Who is, have you got it? And so we got 3 contestants here. They all know the answer. Jeffrey's over here. This is Brad Cooper. He only lost 1 game ever on Jeopardy. He knew it was Bram Stoker. Did you get it right? Author of Dracula.
And you will do what?
He bets all his money, but he doesn't have enough money to
add
really
that
bet
to your total
win.
from yesterday, which was
So-
10,400. That gives you a 2-day total of 21,600. Over to Ken
Okay.
Jennings now.
He's never lost a game.
Going in.
And he writes,
is what we're looking for, and we find
who is Stoker? I, for one, welcome our new computer overlords. He knows he's lost.
The wager was $1,000. That takes you up to $19,200.
And it was tweeted all around the world. What most people don't think about, they think that was just a game show, but it was actually very obtuse English language questions. You know, and computers aren't really good at language. And this was just a few years ago. After the Jeopardy game, the first thing that IBM applied this to was Watson went to medical school and became a medical student, studying exactly the same texts, going to the same tutorials as every doctor. And now we know that we have saved people all around the world because of Watson. Watson is the best cancer diagnostician. I used to get paid to speak professionally. Never mind. Better at diagnosing cancer than humans. And even I work with the entire legal industry here in Australia, and they're all talking about how all the paralegal jobs are going right now. And the machine learning lawyer is coming next for them, and they know it. They know it. Do you know any lawyers worried about this? I do. All of them. One law firm in New York answers the 2 biggest questions that every client asks their lawyer but can never get the right answer. What are the 2 questions that every client asks the lawyer but never can get the right answer? How much is this going to cost me? How much is this going to cost me? And the lawyers go, a lot. And then the second question they ask that they never get right is, hey, well, that's related to how much it will cost, how long does it take? The other question is, will I win? Well, now, one firm in New York has taken all the court cases and digitized them as big data. They've looked at They've taken all the invoicing for all the law firms in all of North America, and now they can say, oh, you're doing an IP matter in this federal seat of Massachusetts with this judge, and the average IP case going through these courts from all the law firms that have matters before them is about $2.1 million, and we've crunched the data, and we think you have an 86% chance of winning. Would you like to play? Yeah, one law firm did this, and now do you think all the rest of them are trying to figure this out too? They announced this, and then the next week, it's just like that. They announced they now can answer the two biggest questions that every client asks their lawyer, and the next week, Google became a client. Here's Kiva. They'll look at that. I got a new phone plan from Optus. It was 47 pages long. And you do due diligence on a mobile phone plan, 47 pages long. You can stick it into Kira. Kira will do the due diligence on the contract for you and give you the executive summary. I put 2 contracts in, and it said, Craig, you're going to be paying 14% more for data on this contract versus that one. If you don't accept that contract. Unfortunately, got a new iPhone 7, they wouldn't let me. I had to take a new contract. How annoying. And you've heard about Google acquiring this UK startup DeepMind, and what did DeepMind do recently? Won the most difficult game in the world, Go. Just beat the Grandmaster 3 times in a row, and it's actually changing the world of Go. That now the humans are learning from the computers. Fascinating. So, could you apply this to your business? Your investment strategy, your plans for the future. Could you apply it to your future investments? Luckily for you, most of these tools have been made open source. All you have to do is connect with people who know how to do this. I'll tell you who knows how to do this. Students at UNSW, UTS, University of Sydney, about 18, 19, 20 years old. The first thing that my daughter was doing in her second semester, I said, what are you doing there, sweetheart? She said, I'm doing the Amazon machine learning. We're recognizing characters in text. And I was just thinking to myself, when I went to school and learned Fortran, we weren't really down with that machine learning stuff. Are you down with the machine learning stuff? Well, 19-year-olds are. It's built into apps now. I love this one. You got inbox you let it read your email. It's not tracking you, really. It reads your email and then suggests how you could respond. Hi all, we wanted to invite you to join us for an early Thanksgiving on November 22nd, beginning around 2 p.m. Please bring your favorite dish, RSVP by next week, Dave. And it suggested name, count us in, we'll be there, or it realized that whenever my family sends me emails like this, I tend to not turn up. So it says, sorry, we won't be able to make it. Really makes the email go faster. This is all based on machine learning. Let's talk about 3D printing. Did you see this when you walked in? Here are 2 robots printing a bridge in metal, extruding alloys. This is actually a simulation. They're actually building the bridge now. They figured out a faster way. Put a robot on both sides and build to the middle. Faster way of doing this. 3D printing, it's just a specialized form of robotics, isn't it? And now we can print in metal, we can print in ceramic, we can print in mixed wood products, all sorts of plastic. We can print in food. We're printing food now. But have a look at this. This is printing metal. Just think about how this is going to change the world.
first, they were little worm-like blobs. It was hard to see, but we saw a universe of possibilities. Of course, many things went wrong. A welding machine exploded, nozzles got stuck, and the robot got disoriented. But then, they became long lines, complex curves, and double-curved oval tubes. It was like drawing in midair. And after endless testing, we were able to speed up the process and produce this complex sculpture of lines. And now, we are ready for the ultimate poster project, to test all facets of this highly promising printing technology. A large-scale object that is functional and meaningful. We are going to print the steel bridge in Amsterdam.
So they put a flag down. We are going to build a bridge over a canal in Amsterdam. And you won't believe who turned up. Autodesk turned up. The Building Research Industry Group turned up. Financiers turned up because they put a flag in the ground saying we're going to build a bridge over a canal in Amsterdam. And it's surprising who turned up when they put the flag in the ground. This guy, a few years ago, took a 3D printer, scaled it up, and decided that he wanted to do something about all the construction waste. We have got tons of construction waste in Sydney right now. And you know where it goes? Into the ground, into the tip. It's not very green construction. So he develops this process where he goes to all the construction sites in China and says, give us your construction waste. He grinds it up, puts 10% of cement into it, and creates his giant 3D printer and prints 10 construction sheds like these in a day. The world hears about it. The next year, he's at this trade fair showing off the way that he can print an entire home, one floor at a time now. So a 5-story apartment building or home takes 5 days. And the reason it takes 5 days is you have to wait for the cement to cure. So it prints the first floor and it sits there for 24 hours. And then it hitches itself up. It climbs on top and prints the next floor. Have you seen this? It's incredible.
Average home. Get a little closer and you'll see the multiple layers that created this 3D printed villa. It's part of a display in eastern China showing the latest feat in innovative construction and includes this 5-story apartment building thought to be the tallest 3D printed building in the world.
We transfer the design of the house we want to the printing machine and then the ink is sprayed layer by layer. For this 1,100 square meter building, for instance, which has 3 floors, it took us 1 day per floor.
Record speed that's made possible by a giant 3D printing machine, measuring 105 feet long and 21 feet tall. Instead of ink, the printer squirts out a paste made from recycled waste materials. With larger homes like this villa costing about $161,000 to produce, many are saying it could be a game changer for the construction industry, particularly in countries like China that are facing rapid urbanization.
I think this technology is going to change the way buildings are built. It's going to be attractive to all income brackets. Lower income bracket, they'll get something that is cheap and quick, but something they can be proud of, something that looks really nice. And for like the more the upper income bracket, it's going to give you really complex and fancy looking structures that they would really like.
The development company says it already has 10 orders for the villa and 20,000 orders for smaller houses from the Egyptian government. Maggie Mazzetti, Associated.
You know, there's all this talking going on right now about low-cost housing. Do you hear anybody suggesting that they print a house in a day for $10,000? How come nobody's talking about this? It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. Of course, we can print at the molecular level now. We can literally print at the molecular level. You can build tiny nanoscale machines and order them over the internet. My 19-year-old daughter taught me this. You can order tiny little robots that do things, including growing ears and bladders and kidneys and lungs. They're already doing this with animal parts And I work in the pig industry. You know, Australian pork's one of my clients. And they've been looking for a second product from pigs because all they've got is bacon because they don't have any wool or anything, right? They've only got bacon. And so they're looking for their second product, and clearly the second product is going to be replacement parts for us because their hearts are very much like ours, and their lungs are very much like ours. And people think, this is science fiction. This couldn't really be happening, Rispin. And I've met medical futurists who are doing this right now, today. It's just like that terrible science fiction movie you may have seen that Ewan McGregor was in. What was it called? Shutter Island, was it? The Island, the terrible movie, wasn't it? It was really awful. But the idea behind it, very controversial. But I know medical futurists, they're actually doing this in their labs. Have a look at this.
In the 2005 sci-fi thriller The Island, people have found a way to live forever. They grow clones and harvest their organs. But real science may be on the verge of a less diabolical solution. This, for example, is no special effect. It's a lab-grown lung, no clone attached.
I absolutely see a day where you'll walk into a manufacturing facility somewhere and there will be jars of kidneys, jars of livers, and jars of lungs. Whatever it is you need.
Just as in The Island, your body would accept the new organ because it would be yours, grown from your cells.
And there would be no more waiting lists for organs. There would be no more rejection. We would enter a new era where we could build you an identical, ideal replacement.
How is this going to change the world? Just think about this with your learning partner. Just one more chance to discuss with your neighbor. How do you think 3D printing of life forms or of buildings or other things will change the world in just the next few years? You have 30 seconds to discuss. Your time begins now.
These things I always wanted to ask. One of those really gives me more about McKinsey predicts it's something 16 years.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who would like to share? Shoot your hand up. Who would like to share the discussion you've been having with your learning partner? What do you think about this 3D printing? It's not going anywhere, is it? It's not going to have any impact, do you think? Who would like to share? Yeah?
We were just talking about food. We were just talking about food and being able to, like, you know, outside of Penrith, go and get steaks and all the food, but it's not from animals. It's all produced. I mean, that sorts out the environment issues that we have where we have to kill these animals. So yeah, probably going to get that way.
And one of my kids wants to be in the future of food. He sees a future of vertical farms, so we don't have to have the trucks transporting things in. It's the area that he wants to go into. One last idea to share with you, and then we can continue the discussion afterwards. I'll stick around to answer any questions. I've got 3 offers for you, of course. Of course, I have 3 offers for you, but you don't have to take advantage of them if you don't want to. Let me ask you the question, are you investing in the past or the future? What's your mindset? How's your portfolio doing? This is my virtual portfolio. It's doing pretty well. I can't invest in any of these shares or I'd have to disclose all of them to the FTC, one of the benefits of having an American passport. But you might follow my lead. You might try and think about what are the companies that I could invest in the future. Have you ever thought about this? I think about it all the time. Unfortunately, I can't invest. So what I like to do is, on Yahoo or Google or thefool.com, you can create a virtual portfolio and have, leaderboards with your friends. And you're not investing real money, you're just practicing. And maybe you would get more comfortable if you saw these kind of results. I've had some really bad overall results, with some of these companies I've held for a long time. But I'll tell you what, when a company like Apple stock split 7 times, man, it just makes everything go up. And I didn't come up with this list myself. I just went to the Boston Consulting Group, you may have heard of them, published a list of the most innovative companies, and I just downloaded the Google spreadsheet and imported it into my portfolio and watched it happen. So I didn't choose it. They sort of made an index for me, but not an index of industrials or overseas, but an index of the most innovative companies in the world. And this is what I think about. How can I be engaged with these world's most innovative companies? Maybe you'd like to join me. Would you like to continue the conversation afterwards? Would you like to talk about the future of your organization? I'd love to see how I might be able to help you. Here's the first offer. Completely free of charge. I'm not going to sign you up on an email list. I do not spam. I do not have a membership site. This is a gift to you. Would you like to have a video conference with a futurist and talk about your future? Go to bit.ly/videocraig and you can book in on your phone for next week after the long holiday. I'm taking Monday off, okay? You can book in for next week for a 45-minute free consult with me about a project you have in mind. No charge. I'm not going to try and spam you with something else. Don't you hate that? I hate it, so I would never do it to my clients. Second offer, if you so choose, I run monthly mentoring groups around the country and online where I have just 15 seats of non-competing leaders in every industry you could imagine that meets with me, 2 here in Sydney on a third Monday, that's coming up, 1 in Melbourne, 1 in Moore Park, 1 online, 1 in, where else do we go, Kimberly? Newcastle, at a cool co-working place in Newcastle. We love co-working facilities. I run all my programs at co-working facilities, just so you know. It's a policy of our organization, in fact. Because it's clearly the future. Not the past. So you can get to that if you'd like to come along as my guest to a 2-hour session this month or next month or any month into the future. Keep that link, which is bit.ly. If you're smart, you'll snap a picture of it right now. bit.ly/SME-mentoring, and you'll get to this page. It's Sydney Group number 1, which is for SMEs. Are there any large businesses in the room? If there's any large businesses, it's Sydney Group number 2, and it's in the afternoon on the same day. You can find it on my website. But, more than $5 million turnover. Last offer. Please connect to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. I'd like to know more about what you do. I really do. I'm fascinated when I get to know what people are doing, and I know I can help. If you learned something this evening that you think is valuable, if you would connect to me on LinkedIn and just write a review, a recommendation, not an endorsement, nobody looks at those, just one line, something that you learned that was valuable to you tonight, I'd really appreciate that. Because when you do that, you'll be telling everybody else that you're connected to that you got some value out of my work here this evening, and that's how I got paid. So that's how I'm getting paid tonight, just so you know. I'd love to help you continue to think about the future. Maybe you'll join us at the World Future Society or at Singularity University. Maybe you're going to invest in the future. I'd love to help you. Let's continue that conversation over drinks. Should we do that? All right, thank you very much.
She's a young lady who's in the serial entrepreneur. So one thing she was applying when they were applying like video and audio monitoring of participants in a conversation to get the non-verbal cues out of what's going on in their thoughts. Yeah, so they'd applied some video techniques, but they were like, I thought them I'd ended up with my speech background. But not any emotions out from their speech audio.
Can you hang on?
There's a lot of facial coding.
Which one? That's right. Sorry.
Perfect.
What are we doing?
Large voice. Say thanks very much.
We're live. Thanks very much for coming to the latest NSIN instalment. Our meetups are monthly. We've got a pitch night coming up. Heaps to do in North Sydney. Thanks for coming.